So the Arosa Line was released about 2 weeks ago, and judging by what some people are saying about it on the DTG forums, it seems that there are some mixed feelings about the route. Before the release of the route, I and a lot of people in the TSW community were pretty excited about it. It was going to be a change of pace from the routes we were used to getting. The Arosa had street running sections, where it shares its right of way with cars and actual road vehicles. It also has the highest elevation, with extremely steep gradients. Players thought that the route could have some very unique features, with it having a request stop feature in real life. As the route neared release and we got videos and streams of the route, concerns about it started to arise. The main concern was about the scenery. It just looked off, and it didn't look too realistic. Players still had some hope left with the route, being that what we had seen was only from dev builds and not the release version. Turns out, even after the route was released, the scenery looked the same, with players having a similar feeling to when Southeastern High Speed was released and we saw the fences on HS1. Before we get into this review, I'm going to ask all of you to like the video if you enjoy it and subscribe to the channel for more content. When I first got the route and played it, I felt a similar experience to that of the Isle of Wight and East Coastway. A nice calming experience. Something different than the Bakerloo Line or Southeastern. Something that doesn't really have you experiencing the hustle and bustle of operating a crowded train into the city. You can even see on my first look stream of the route that I actually enjoyed playing it. This feeling I had about the route quickly disappeared though, as the more and more I kept playing the route, the more and more I either became frustrated with it or I felt like there wasn't enough done with it and that it was boring. This route, like many others, has some issues with sounds, primarily the traction motor noise. The sound of this train sounds extremely similar to that of the 1972 stock on the Bakerloo Line and the Class 483 on the Isle of Wight. Honestly, I felt like Rivet overdid it with reusing the 1972 stock sounds for the Class 483 on the Isle of Wight, but to reuse those sounds again for a completely different train in a different environment is insane. I have a feeling that Rivet just didn't have the same type of sound engineers as Dovetail. If this is the case, I highly suggest that Rivet looks towards getting DTG or Armstrong Powerhouse to help out with these sounds. Sound is a big part of making sure the player feels immersed while in the simulator. Hearing how similar this train sounds to the 1972 stock on the Bakerloo Line just throws me off, and it makes me lose immersion. Now I understand that they are all older trains and they have that hum noise, so it's easy for them to just copy the noise from the older trains. However, I think they could have done much better with the sound on this specific unit. Now let's get into the big issues I have with this route, and those issues mostly involve the scenery. The Arosa Line in real life is a steep route with dense greenery. It is a beautiful route, and you would expect it to look that way in game. However, it ultimately falls short on the goal of creating realistic scenery. You would think the scenery would look great because most of the route has you going through the mountains, where you would be able to see everything, but the scenery just looks horrible. The trees and the grass placement on this route is highly questionable, with this seeming like they were just randomly scattered around, with no density, and the rocky edges of the mountains you are climbing look way too smooth. Yes, I guess the up-close scenery is alright, but look at the distant scenery. The mountains just look rough, for the lack of a better term. It isn't convincing and it looks very blurry, as if they used a low-resolution texture for the mountains. The quality of the scenery on this route makes it look like a PS3 game, not a DLC in a game made in the Unreal Engine in 2021. This route's scenery doesn't even compare to some of DTG's routes, even Southeastern. Now if you run this route in the snow, it looks much better, but that just isn't what everyone wants to do. I prefer to run routes in the spring, with a bit of cloud, so I wouldn't be seeing the route with a nice coat of snow over it. And even with the snow, parts of the route still looks rough, with the trees looking like white blobs from a distance. All of these issues with the scenery just ruin the immersion and it makes me really not want to play the route all that much. I feel like this route was a nice concept, but it was poorly executed in the long run. More could have been done with the route. The focus seems like it was directed towards the wrong things, with them worrying about a non-functional request stop feature instead of worrying about more important things like the actual scenery on the route. I think the rolling stock is cool, but I'm not a big fan of older types of locomotives. I prefer more modern trains, and so do a lot of other people. I feel like this train being so old and not really interesting a lot of the younger type of audience that are more used to the modern trains is holding the route back. That is why I made my suggestion for the Allegra. I feel like that train being on this route could give it a better feel. I never really felt engaged with the route while operating the GE 4/4, so maybe the Allegra could change that. I like Rivet, and I feel like they have the potential to create some nice routes for TSW. However, their routes just don't have the quality we've come to expect from a TSW route. As of right now, I would hold off on getting the route. It just isn't worth the full $30 price tag. There isn't enough content in the route to justify that price, and the quality of the route definitely doesn't make up for it. I would recommend picking it up should there be a sale or price drop. I really hope Rivet fixes the look of the scenery on the route and improves the overall feel of it, as this route needs some fixes done to it, and soon. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, and if you are new and you haven't already, please click the subscribe button for more content on the channel. Peace.